594-5757. I didn't include the area code, but it's the phone number of one of my best friends, someone I've known since I was in preschool. And to be more accurate, it's not really his phone number. It's the phone number of the landline of the house that his parents haven't lived in more than a decade. But it's the only number I know in my brain, I know by heart, from memory, that I could call him at. And clearly it's not a very useful number. The truth is, if I lost my phone, I wouldn't know how to call my wife. I could call my parents' landline, but I couldn't call their cell phones or my siblings' cell phones, because those are simply not numbers that are stored in my brain. They're all stored in my phone. And anyone who knows me knows how much I love my cell phone and how attached to it I am, because it has so much information in it. It is everything: my pictures, my memories, my moments, my conversations with friends, with family, all of it right there in my fingertips. And when I don't have access to it, especially if there's a really long Chag, Shabbat, in 3 days, or I'm stuck on a plane or somewhere and I can't get to this information, I feel like a part of me isn't there. And for some, they might say that's an unhealthy relationship with my cell phone, which is why I was very happy when I came across Professor David Chalmers. He's a philosopher of mind. For those of you who want to know what that is, it's philosophers who study questions of consciousness. Why are we conscious? What is consciousness? Where does it come from? And he's a professor at New York University and co-director of the NYU Center for Mind, Brain, and Consciousness Studies. And so when he asked those questions, he came up with an interesting idea he calls the extended mind. And it might sound a little out there, but it's actually an idea that I think isn't so revolutionary. I think it's actually an idea that our tradition, that Judaism, has been trying to teach us for thousands of years. So his idea of the extended mind is simple. It says parts of our brain, parts of our mind, our consciousness, exist outside of our bodies, our physical brain. We have our immediate consciousness, the objects of our awareness, but we also have memory. We have information that is stored somewhere in our brain. And every once in a while, we recall that information. We bring it forward to our consciousness. And it's there that it becomes really a part of who we are, that we use that information. Because when it's just floating back there somewhere in our brain and we're not thinking about it, we don't really know it. It's there, but it's not a part of our immediate personality, our immediate thinking. It was just stored somewhere for you to recall when you need it. So Chalmers suggests that the same way information is just stored somewhere in the back of our mind that we're not immediately conscious of until we need it and we use it, so too the information we might store in a journal or a cell phone is a part of our mind in that sense. Not our physical brain, but it's a part of our mind, our conscious experience. When you write that phone number on a piece of paper, you put it in your cell phone, it becomes a part of who you are. It's information that you're not currently conscious of, stored somewhere so you can access it when you need it. And when you access it, it becomes a part of you. So when I first heard this theory, again, I thought, great, I can justify my unhealthy attachment to my cell phone. But it's something that I think is much more than that. The basic premise is that we can store memories outside of ourselves. And even if we store them outside of ourselves, they are still a part of us. And like I said, that's what Judaism has been telling us for a long, long time. Storing each generation's memories in the next one, passing them down ledor v'dor, from one generation to the next. We're done now with sitting in our sukkah, but I want to think about the Kabbalistic tradition of inviting the Ushpizin. Each night we invite a different guest, a major Jewish figure, into our sukkah. We invite Abraham, and we think about his kindness. The love that he had for humanity, we feel him because we know him. We know the traits that he had, and we tell his story. And we remember those traits. How he went out to greet strangers and travelers from his tent, to offer them food and drink. how he cared about those in another city, fighting with God to protect the innocent. We invite Joseph into our sukkah. We can feel the spiritual foundation from which he lived, the faith that he always had, no matter how bad things got, that things could get better, that God would take care of him. And we can feel that because we remember his story. We talk about how he was thrown into a pit, how he was sold into slavery, how he was taken from Pharaoh's dungeon and raised up to Prince of Egypt. There's the modern custom of inviting the Ushpizata, the 7 major women in Jewish history, into our sukkah. We invite Ruth in and we recall her attachment, her promise to cling to Naomi, refusing to desert her and the Jewish people, the Israelite nation she had joined. We remember that because that story has been passed down to us. And all of that can happen. We can know who these people are without ever having met them. My grandfather, my mom's father, he passed away when I was just a young child. And I have memories of him. I remember climbing around on him when he tried to sit at our kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee. I remember that whenever I wanted to talk to him, he would get down low so I could see him eye to eye. Or that if he was talking with my parents or another adult and I wanted his attention, he'd always stop whatever he was doing to give it to me, to make me feel special. And yet when I remember these moments and I picture these memories, I don't really see them in the first person. I see them outside like I'm watching a movie or a television show. I can see myself and him living these moments. Because the truth is, I don't know if I really remember these moments firsthand. I don't know if I remember them because I was there or because I've heard the stories so many times from my grandmother and my mother. But because I've heard those stories, I remember it as if they were in my memories. I can feel the love he had for me, the joy he had from playing together. I can feel the meaning it had for me when he took his time to make me feel special, to give me his full focus and attention. Those memories are a part of me, and they've impacted the way I interact with children myself, working at camp and with youth, of making sure to give them my full attention. Just because they're down here, not making them feel like I'm all the way up here, but coming down to their level. There's a custom some people have in their sukkah of leaving a chair empty for the Ushpizin to sit in, for these special guests. The seat is physically empty, but as we tell the stories, the seat becomes full. We invite them into the sukkah, and it becomes significant, their memory, their personality, who those Ushpizin were. The holidays, I know, are a particularly difficult time for so many. For anyone who has suffered a loss, the holidays are a time when we sit around our table and we see those empty seats. We see the reminders of those we've loved who are no longer here with us. The empty seats stand as monuments of the loss that we've suffered, the cracks in our heart. But again, our tradition tells us we can fill those cracks. We can hold on to more than just the emptiness of that chair as the monument, but instead, the stories, the memories, the actions that someone we loved lived by, the deeds that they performed, the values, the motivation behind their acts. They're a piece of them that was stored in each of us. That's the idea of the extended mind. That's the idea our tradition teaches us. We can pass down memory from generation to generation. When we share their stories, we do more than a passive act. We implant a part of who they are, not just in ourselves, but in the people we share those stories with, the next generation. We implant a piece of our loved ones into the next generation. Like the Ushpizin, the stories about people we've never met can bring their presence into our lives in a significant, in a meaningful, in a very real way. Before we begin our Yizkor service, I want to conclude with a final thought. Today's Shemini Atzeret, we find ourselves in this liminal space. It's not Sukkot, That holiday is behind us. But it's also not yet Simchat Torah. That holiday begins tonight. Today is its own holiday in itself, but also the 8th day of Sukkot. And tomorrow, Simchat Torah is also the 2nd day of Shemini Atzeret. We find ourselves today with a holiday that's really simply the space between two other holidays. We recognize that what's in our past and not our present, and yet we haven't yet really moved on to the future. We're trapped between the two. When we suffer a loss, it's easy to find ourselves in that space, trapped between the past and the future, stuck in that moment, looking at what no longer is, but unable to step into tomorrow and what will be. Tomorrow we complete the book of Devarim. We finish the cycle of readings from the Torah and we return back to Bereshit. And that is the most important lesson, I think, of all. Our tradition tells us that when you finish the story, you begin at the beginning. You go back and you tell it again. You tell it again and again and again until it becomes a part of who we are, a part of our collective memory as Jews. And the same goes when we lose someone we love. We tell their story over and over. We pass it on to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great-grandchildren. As a people, we've done what David Chalmers calls an extended mind. Those who've come before us have passed their memories, their lessons, their values themselves down into us. And it's our duty to take those pieces that we've been given and to continue to pass them on to the next generation. To not let the pieces of our tradition, the pieces of our loved ones, fade away. The Bnei Yisachar, a Polish Hasidic rabbi, taught that the very last letter of the Torah is a lamed. We connect it with the very first letter of Bereshit, a bet. They form the word lev, a heart. And that is the seal, the binding that connects us, the Jewish people, with God throughout history, our heart. When we lose someone we love, that is the same seal. It's connecting the end of the story back to the beginning. It's with our heart, with our emotions, with our memories, that connects us and seals us together. The task is the same. Tell their stories. Tell them again and again and again. Those we've lost, our parents, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters, God forbid, our children, our friends, our colleagues. Those we've loved and lost have given us a sacred responsibility. They've placed a part of who they are in us. And it is up to us to take that responsibility seriously and to pass that piece on. Someday, those around us will hold the responsibility for our stories, for our memories. So as we begin today our Yizkor service, I ask that you close your eyes for a moment. Think about those you are here today to remember. Picture their faces. Picture their smile. Feel the warmth of their presence, the comfort of their embrace. Find in yourself those moments that live on in you, the piece of themselves that they've given you, that they've entrusted you to carry. And together as a community, as we remember our loved ones, let us rededicate ourselves to this sacred task, the trust that is placed in us to ensure those who were continue to be, that who they were is never lost.